free creature. Welcome to tonight on DAG. As always, this is your host, Dratta Arcana, and welcome to Dratta Talks. Now, today's stream or podcast is actually going to be on the season premiere of Season 9. Alright, let's get some simple, maybe not so simple stuff out of the way. Keep in mind, this is not necessarily an analysis video as much as reviewing the episode. So, Season 9, the last season. The premiere has a very appropriate title for what this premiere is. The beginning of the end. So, it's actually fitting to have it say it's the beginning of the end, because it is. It's the premiere before the end of Season 9, which is the final season. Now, I'm going to get some things off my chest throughout this stream and stuff, but the big thing that I want to get off my chest right off the bat is Sombra. Okay, I'm going to let that sink in for a second before we go into anything else. So now that I said that name, keep in mind, these are spoilers. If you have not watched the episode, this is your last chance besides that one word at the beginning. Just keep in mind, this video does contain spoilers. So if you're looking to do your own blind reactions and so forth, do not continue past this point. You have been warned. This podcast will indeed contain spoilers. Alright, let's talk a little bit about my criteria. So, as you guys remember from my Sounds of Silence video, that the things we're going to be looking at is fandom response, characters, music, history, mythology, overall story. These are the criteria that we will be looking at. Now, as far as the next criteria, main 6, Tree of Harmony, Magic, Cutie Mark Map, we won't be I definitely will not be doing 3 and 4, but it's going to be really hard to do the premiere without the first 2. Okay, let's jump into it. We first open up to where the main 6 are running to the Canterlot Castle to meet with Celestia and Luna. And it turns out that it was urgent. So, of course, the main 6 are freaking out and everything, thinking that something has gone wrong. Well, come to find out that when they get to the castle, it turns out that Celestia and Luna just wanted to let them know that they are retiring. Okay, for those of you, well, I'll go into that stuff later, actually. So they say that they're retiring, and that's a big shocker. And they want to leave Twilight in charge of the whole kingdom. Of course, Twilight freaks out, and we have a new meme, Twilighting. That's great. I love that phrase, Twilighting. So her friends try to calm her down. Discord tries to help them out. Meanwhile, we get a villain that actually returns from from one of the generations that I'm not as familiar with, whether it's generation 1 or 2. Feel free to correct me in the comments. And as always, no but Dratta's on this one. I didn't exactly... So, before we get into this villain, we see that Chrysalis is, of course, attacking Wood of Thorax. Makes sense. And then we see Tyrek and Cozy Glow. All of them kind of get warped, teleported somewhere. And as we see that they all think that each of them gets summoned, King Sombra gets, of course, resurrected. It's kind of hard to not to notice that. Of course, we see that Cozy Glow, basically the new villain Grogar, tells them that the reason why they keep losing is because they're not working together. Obviously, that's a big part of it. And so we see that in the episode. So Grogar explains this to them, and King Sombra's like, hey, I'm just going to go off on my own. And and Grogar is, I'll get into the actors a little bit later. I'm kind of just looking through it somewhat quickly, real quick. Okay, so King Sombra basically says that I'm going to take over the Crystal Empire on my own, and I'm just going to not work with you guys. Right? Typical villain. Working together doesn't work. So he goes to the Crystal Empire, and apparently Cadence and Shining Armor can't stop him this time around. He's too strong, and he, of course, takes over the Crystal Empire. Twilight and her friends in the main six go to, with the elements of harmony. Discord's trying to, of course, encourage them, while Twilight is completely thinking that she's the worst choice for a ruler in all of Equestria, freaking out about how to run a kingdom, and so forth. And we get to where they go and they have an epic battle with the elements of harmony against King Sombra. Now, keep in mind, this is all in part 1, so there's a lot going on. There's a lot of action. So we get to towards the end, they defeat King Sombra with the elements of harmony, but it turns out that they didn't actually defeat him, because when they return the elements, King Sombra destroys the Tree of Harmony. That's part 1. That's about it. Part 2 happens. So in part 2, we see King Sombra basically, without the elements of harmony, Twilight has no idea what to do. She's, without the elements, she doesn't know how to approach the situation, because the elements are all destroyed. And she's trying to, kind of put them together, which is really adorable, because you can't repair a magic gem like that, especially something that was grown from a tree. I mean, it's kind of hard to do. But so Twilight doesn't know what to do, and of course her friends try to attack Sombra, and of course that doesn't go over well. And then we see, this is something interesting to note, is that King Sombra possesses all the abilities that we in the fandom wanted from him. But I'll get into more of that a little later, because there is a couple things I want to touch on about that. So King Sombra takes control of all of their friends and family in Ponyville, and then he leads them on to Canterlot to attack Canterlot. Twilight and her friends don't know what to do. They manage to dig their way out of Sombra's magic. Interesting. But they dig their way out, and then they discover that without the Tree of Harmony, the Everfree Forest can't invade. Lo and behold, as is typical, the princesses show up with Star Swirl bearded, and Star Swirl tells us that he was the one that originally stopped the Everfree Forest from invading. So that's a cool piece of story. Star Swirl and the princesses hold the Everfree Forest back, while Twilight goes to Canterlot, and they're not really wanting to fight their friends. And eventually they ask Discord to help them against King Sombra. Discord, of course, gets hit by Sombra's magic, and Discord goes and be Discord as their friend. Basically, so what ends up happening is that Twilight is able to use her element, same with all of her friends, without the Tree of Harmony because of the fact that it's not the elements that they don't need the elements because they are the elements, if that kind of makes sense. And I'll get kind of more into that here in a moment. And of course, they defeat Sombra, and Grogar's like tells the other villains, "Hey, learn from this." Okay, that's pretty much the two-parter in a nutshell. I don't know if I missed anything that you guys would have preferred I talked about. Please leave a comment. Anyways, that's the gist of the overall arcing story. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Tree of Harmony, and for once in this podcast, I will talk about the Tree of Harmony. I have a feeling, and this is just a theory, the Tree of Harmony was never meant to be a source of unlimited magic. All it is I think it's an amplifier. This is the first time I'll probably actually analyze the Tree of Harmony, and I'm only going to do it this once, unless we have another episode that requires me to analyze the Tree of Harmony. But I think that the Tree of Harmony is nothing more than a amplifier of magic energy that syncs with the user to amplify their magic. The elements are more or less an amplifier. And I have several theories behind this. The first one being that the Tree of Harmony controls the Everfree Forest by taking the magic of the land and directing it. The other reason is that every time a pony uses them, their magic is significantly stronger. The third reason is kind of confirmed in this series, that all it was doing was enhancing the current traits of the main six and directing it. So I think that the Tree of Harmony is supposed to be an amplifier, not an actual source of magic. Okay, with that one time out of the way, let's talk a little bit about we'll get into the acting here in a moment, but first let's start with the actual characters. Okay, I have a lot to say about King Sombra. King Sombra is, of course, voiced by Alvin Sanders. Alvin Lee Sanders, and I'm not sure if he was the same voice actor from way back in the Crystal Empire Part 2, because we do hear Sombra speak just one line, but so he did a great job voicing Sombra, I have to admit. As far as Sombra's character, I know that we kind of were all expecting him to have the crystal powers and the ability to have fear, to make ponies see their worst fears. He kind of does this with his eyes. Honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of Sombra's powers. I think that they tried to write his character with the fandom in mind, because if it had been any way else, if his character had been written in any other way, of course they'd get a lot of backlash. So that's just my 2 cents about Sombra. I feel like that he could have had a lot more powers. He was very intelligent, very strategic, and that kind of hits home. He's kind of one of the smartest villains that we've had. So that's fine. I like that about him. Now, the new villain we got, Grogar, is voiced by Doc Harris, which I'll probably have a whole thing on him when we actually get to his portion of Season 9. Okay, now, as far as the fandom goes, I think every pony in the fandom will really enjoy this episode because we actually get a lot of awesome action scenes out of King Sombra. And that's what we've been wanting since like the Crystal Empire Part 1s and 2. I think that they delivered well on that front. As far as the premiere goes, I had said in a previous video, in a previous podcast, that in order for Season 9 to be a great final season, it needed to have a good story, good characters, and good music. This premiere, though very, very epic, definitely, I think that the character development we got out of King Sombra was incredible. The acting was spot on. The development was spot on. We see a lot of good moments between Twilight and her friends. Discord. That whole scene was emotional. And, you know, I almost cried myself during that part when Discord's speaking his final speech and everything. But, though it wasn't really his final speech, but we're made to think that it was on your first run through. So, all in all, it was a well-developed overall episode. There were definitely some parts where I felt really bonded, really sad, kind of upset. You know, it got me in the emotional area in a lot of sections. And that's great. But as far as the story-wise, I do not see how the premiere... there are sections of the premiere that definitely set up for the next few episodes. Like for the whole season. Like Grogar's the big baddie and everything. But I do not see how bringing in Sombra was really advancing the premiere. I think that if Chrysalis had been if it had been Chrysalis over Sombra, I would have been okay instead of them basically resurrecting Sombra, which they said he was banished to the ether rather than the afterlife, which ether basically equivalates to afterlife. It's science. Science. But I think that overall, if we actually break it down into its parts, the music was spot on, the story was spot on, and the acting was phenomenal. I felt that the episodes went by too quick. It's a very, very fast-paced episode. Both episodes are very, very fast-paced. And I don't like fast-paced movies or TV episodes. When they're fast-paced, they go by so quickly, you don't get time to really absorb yourself in the episode. I've always been taught that you want a slower pace because you want the person, you know, thinking at the end, like, oh, I want more. This kind of at the end, I was just like, okay, it's over. You know, oh, it was 24 minutes, and that's that. So I feel like that they could have paced it better, but that's my only real problem with it. So, knowing all this and looking at it very, very carefully, we get a lot of good background info. We get to understand more about the various villains and everything. And I feel like that the premiere didn't hit the bar that I was hoping for. But it was close enough to the bar that I was searching for. And that makes me think that, okay, this is a good premiere, but unfortunately, it's only slightly above the bar. It's only slightly above, like, Shadowplay Part 1 and 2, in my opinion. It definitely does not meet the epicness of the premiere of season 1 and the premiere of season 2. Those premieres were far more epic and far more interesting. In my opinion, they were better and more well designed. But now, here's where I'm going to start talking about the writing of this. First off, I had said in one of my podcasts that they are basically working off the story Bible. And that's why I wouldn't want a season 10, is because they'd be off the story Bible. We see that in this episode. In the premiere, it doesn't feel like it, but they're actually not working off of anything from the story Bible at the moment. By having Celestia and Luna pretty much just say, we retire, and that being that, it's kind of just like saying, okay, well, we don't know how to write Celestia and Luna at the moment, and we'll have to run with it. Putting in King Sombra basically means that they're going off of what the fans really, really wanted to see, what we as the fandom wanted to see, and they just made a story out of it. It just feels like that what they're doing is that they're, kind of throwing darts in the dark, thinking what we want to see, what target we're looking for, because they don't. It definitely shows that they don't have an actual story Bible anymore. Like literally, like bringing back Grogar, who's a villain from like another generation, shows that they've ran out of villains in the story Bible. The story Bible was never meant to be written to this, season. It wasn't supposed to go this long, which is fine. But now they're working off of what they already have and what kind of we're looking for. And they've gotten away from the actual official story Bible. We kind of saw this in the previous season as well, and this premiere definitely demonstrates that they're running out of content. They've used up so much of their content that they really don't have anything else that they can do besides go off of what they have. Now, I'm not trying to say that the writers did a terrible job, but with the content that they have available to them, they did a good job working with written material that they actually didn't have any backstory to. They're just working off of what they feel like is the best, best options. And they don't have the availability of the story Bible anymore, so what they have to do is that they have to get their content from somewhere else. We're seeing this more and more as kind of, we've been seeing this for quite some time now, that they've kind of just been winging it because they don't actually have anything structure-wise that they can look at. We've long since gotten past that point. So, because they're off track now, and they got the School of Friendship, and, they're basically working off what they had, and they're trying to write the characters with no inkling of the original design. And this episode definitely feels more like that they ran out of content. It feels that way. And if you pay very close attention, it really is that they've run out of content. But given that they've ran out of content, this was an extremely good episode. I like where they're going with it, but we'll just have to see what the other episodes turn out to be and see if they can make it so this episode was a lot more impactful than it actually felt. And, that's something that's important whenever you're writing a story, especially when it's the final premiere, your opening your opening needs to be so epic that it catches the attention of everyone. Unfortunately, this premiere, the way it felt, is coming in too late for really them to do anything with it. And that's just the way that it's going to be. And if they don't have it where, over time they deal with Chrysalis or Tyrek or Cozy Glow over time throughout the series, and they try to cram everything in the finale. I don't know the full episodes yet, but I feel like that this one was definitely this premiere was extremely fast paced. I would have preferred it if they had slowed down a little bit. Having a slower pace means that the fans get the chance to enjoy it more. I felt like that Discord speech was the most impactful, but it could have been far more emotional than what it was. It could have been a real teardripper. But unfortunately, they were rushing. It was so fast paced, you kind of skip over all the emotional stuff. When they're going through the town and everything, the emotional crying of everyone in Pinky's statements that they were saying that there was nothing funny about this definitely feels like that it was kind of brushed over. It was kind of rushed over, and because of how fast paced it was. They tried to cram, I think, too much into one thing. I think they could have just left Grogar, Tyrek, Cozy Glow, and Chrysalis out of it until like a later episode. I feel like it could have been. I feel like that they could have just had them, disappear from their areas and appear in a room, and then that was it. And have us wondering, but we didn't get that. So, anyways, those are my major gripes with the episode. All in all, great episode. The actors did a phenomenal job. It definitely looks like the actors had fun with it. So that's going to be it, guys, for the podcast tonight. As always, this is Dratta Arcana, and no but Dratta comments. And if you're looking for this or any of my other content, you can look at my content on my YouTube page for Dratta Arcana. And if you're looking to contact me, if you're looking for any other of my content, you can check my Twitch channel as well. When you're at the YouTube channel, please subscribe while you're there. It just lets me know how my channel's doing. And if you're looking to contact me, you can contact me via dratta.arcana@gmail.com, or you can contact me on Dratta Arcana Gaming on Facebook. And as always, guys, no but Dratta comments. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Goodbye, every pony and every creature.